Have you ever had a moment to ask yourself, what would happen if I cloned myself? Or what if there were two of me? This is a hypothetical question, of course, but it's an interesting one to think about. Would we be the same person? Or would we be two completely different people? After seeing a couple of cloning movies, this question would for sure run through your mind, even if you are not a science enthusiast. But the curiosity of it all would definitely not miss you. Well, you no longer have to live in the dark concerning the cloning topic. There are a few different possibilities for this scenario. And you have probably thought, the possibility is that you would be the same person. You would have the same memories, the same personality, and the same thoughts. You would essentially be two copies of the same person. Well, that would only happen if you were cloned at birth and lived in the same environment your whole lives. This means that you would have to go everywhere together, do everything together, and be practically inseparable. Another possibility is that you would be two completely different people. You would have different memories, different personalities, and different thoughts. You would be two unique individuals who just happen to look the same. Of course, there are also a lot of other possibilities between these two extremes. You could be similar, but not identical, or completely different, but still share some similarities. It's hard to say what would happen if you replicated your body, cloned yourself. It's something that would have to be explored in more detail. But it's an interesting question to think about. What do you think would happen? Would you be the same person if you were cloned? Or would you be a completely different person? Let me know in the comments below. To the best of anyone's knowledge, this science peak has never actually been achieved. Yet according to history, cloning began in the 1990s with animal cloning, where scientists replicated animal DNA, or in other words, reproduced a genetically identical copy of an organism. Human cloning, on the other hand, is a thorny political issue, and not a particularly divisive one. More than 85% of the world believes that it is morally wrong, that is, if it can actually be done. Despite what we may have seen in movies, a human clone would almost certainly start as an embryo. Here's what would really happen if you cloned yourself. And if cloning yourself would most likely involve removing a donor egg's nucleus to be replaced with a custom nucleus from an adult cell. And not to pop your bubble, but if you decided to clone yourself, then your clone would not be the same age, characteristics, or maybe even the same face as you. Depending on your age, you might be pretty old by the time your copy took shape. In a simpler explanation, consider the case of identical twins. While they may look alike, they usually have some differences in character and physical aspects, where we can get one with a visible mark on the face and one without. This is because the environment plays a big role in how an organism turns out. You may make a copy of your genes, but copying your memories and experiences is impossible. According to the National Human Genome Research Institute, genes are like light switches. They can either be on or off. Lots of things can flip these switches or not flip them. The institute points out that the first cat to be cloned had a coat that was very different from her genetically identical mother, so the two didn't resemble each other at all. Internationally, in 2019, the Chinese government sentenced the first scientist to create a genetically engineered baby to 3 years in prison. The scientist used DNA editing technology to edit the DNA of twins. A Chinese court then ruled the experiment as the pursuit of personal fame and gain, and in the end, arrested him. Many scientists also denounced the experiment. So another thing that would happen if you haven't picked it up is obviously jail. The other possibility is that your clone might die sooner than you even expect. Even after successfully cloning yourself, it is highly likely that your double would have some health issues. This is because cells in a cloned animal age much faster than usual, and they are likely to have a defective heart, liver, and brain. Their immune system is also weak. The first mammalian clone formed from an adult cell was Dolly the sheep in 1996. But Dolly died young, at only 6 years old, roughly middle-aged for a sheep. She had early-onset osteoarthritis, and researchers at the time thought cloning might have caused it. However, a later study said this conclusion was unfounded, even though Dolly had other health issues, and there were many Dolly clones, most of them duds. Another thing that would happen if you cloned yourself is your clone would be deformed. The chances of having a deformed clone are even higher than the chances of a normal one. Notice how these possibilities keep getting worse? Yeah, it's probably not a good idea to even consider embarking on this cloning journey. Even if your likely illegal cloning experiment might be successful, this futuristic little Frankenstein might be similarly monstrous. In an experiment conducted on a deformed calf clone in 1999, a study was published saying the cloning process seemed to have interfered with the normal genetic functioning. Researchers observed that the process is likely to cause long-term abnormalities. The calf clone died at 7 weeks from severe anemia, which is an iron deficiency. The scientists discovered upon autopsy the animal's lymphatic system had almost completely failed to develop. In other studies, mice that initially appeared normal suddenly grew grotesquely fat, according to the New York Times. Researchers told the Times in 2001 it appeared, even though cloning does copy DNA exactly, gene expression is directly affected, with random errors that can emerge at any time. With cloning, you are asking an egg to reprogram in minutes or at most in hours, MIT researcher Dr. Rudolf Janisch explained. A natural process that usually takes months or years is so condensed that copying errors simply pile up. So even if your clone survived infancy and briefly thrived, things could go terribly wrong at any time. It has also been observed that clones often come in clumps. Following your clone procedure, you may get 2 clones, not 1, sometimes even more than 2, depending on the methodology used. Making a clone may require implanting 2 clones into a female womb, like how monozygotic twins are formed naturally. Another thing is, you could not clone the whole body. There's a concept in the clone world called therapeutic cloning that avoids some of the deeper ethical concerns in which you could simply clone body parts. This technique involves grabbing stem cells, which according to Discover, can be derived from a cloned embryo. Stem cells are special and ironically called unspecialized because they can renew on their own through cell division and can be used to grow any kind of tissue or organ you might want. This technology has implications for many debilitating diseases like diabetes, wherein a person's pancreas is no longer properly producing insulin, letting blood sugar run wild in the body, causing a cascade of nasty health complications. 34 million Americans were saddled with diabetes as of 2020, according to the CDC. That's 1 in 10 people in the US. An advancement in stem cell cloning could theoretically mean your own genetically identical donor organs could be available, and your body wouldn't reject. Pancreatic cloning alone would almost certainly save the life of someone you know. In conclusion, human cloning is likely to cause more harm than good, and its success rate over the years is only up 10-20% as of 2020. Not only are the clones likely to be affected, but also the women carrying the clone embryo are at high risk of complications during pregnancy. Also, currently, there is no reason to just start conducting cloning experiments. Aside from them being illegal and causing a lot of complications, there is no reason to just make human clones. The Earth has enough humans already as it is. And to add to that, cloning yourself wouldn't exactly be creating another you. Instead, it would simply be creating a new baby. Another human baby that shares your DNA and has new memories and new experiences, and on top of that, would be way younger than you. Does that sound familiar? Exactly, it would literally just be your child. Just so we can simply say making a clone at your age would just be the same as having a child with someone else, except this child has 100% of your DNA and no one else. And with that, we have reached the end of our video. If you found this content enjoyable, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you in the next one.